I was sitting in my home office, coffee going cold, staring at my laptop screen. The all-hands meeting had 400 people logged in, every employee at Pinnacle Media, all watching the same feed. Mitchell Drake, our CEO, stood in the conference room looking directly into the camera. His expression was serious, almost sympathetic, which made what came next even worse. "We're making some strategic realignments," he said smoothly. "Effective immediately, Kate Ellis will be transitioning from VP of Strategy to Senior Analyst." My stomach dropped. I watched the company directory update in real time on the sidebar. My title changed. My photo moved down 3 organizational levels. The chat box, usually buzzing with comments, went completely silent. 400 people just watched me get publicly demoted. No warning. No private conversation. Just humiliation, broadcasted company-wide. I closed my eyes and breathed slowly. Mitchell kept talking about organizational efficiency, but I wasn't listening anymore. My hands were shaking, not from sadness, but from rage. The meeting ended, and within seconds, a private message popped up on my screen. It was from Mitchell. "Don't take it personally, Kate. We'll find a place for your skills. Sometimes fresh perspectives need fresh roles." Then, unbelievably, he added a smiling emoji. A smiling emoji. I stared at it, my jaw tight. This man just stripped me of my title, my team, and my dignity in front of the entire company, and now he was sending me condescending reassurances with a smiley face. I didn't respond. I closed the chat and sat in the silence of my office. My cat, Pepper, jumped onto my desk, purring softly. I scratched behind her ears, my mind racing. Mitchell thought this was over. He thought I'd either quit or quietly accept my new, diminished role. He thought he'd won. But he hadn't. Because Mitchell Drake had no idea who I really was. And that was about to become his biggest mistake. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't call friends to vent. I didn't draft an angry resignation letter. Instead, I opened a secure financial app on my tablet, one that only a handful of people in the world even knew existed. The screen loaded slowly, revealing rows of numbers, investment portfolios, stock holdings, real estate assets. My net worth sat at the top of the page, bold and undeniable, $847 million. I'd inherited most of it from my grandfather, a quiet tech mogul who believed in living modestly and investing wisely. I'd spent the last decade growing that fortune in silence, managing it through private advisors and shell companies. Nobody at Pinnacle knew. Nobody in my entire professional life knew. To them, I was just Kate Ellis, hardworking VP, former VP, who drove a 10-year-old sedan and brought homemade lunch to work. Mitchell didn't just demote an employee that day. He provoked a silent majority shareholder. And he had no idea what was coming. The next morning, I logged into work and opened my email. There was only one message that mattered. It was from Bryce Chen, a senior systems analyst in IT and the only person at Pinnacle I actually trusted. That was brutal, his message read. "Are you okay? Let me know if you need anything." I stared at his words, feeling a flicker of warmth in the coldness that had settled over me. Bryce had always been kind, quiet, competent, and genuinely decent. We'd worked together on several projects, and he'd never played the political games that dominated this place. I replied simply, "I'm okay. Thanks for checking in." He responded immediately, "If you need an inside line on anything, I'm here." I smiled slightly. Bryce didn't know it yet, but he'd just become my most valuable ally. Because if I was going to do this, if I was really going to take down Mitchell Drake, I'd need someone on the inside. Someone who could see what I couldn't. And Bryce had just volunteered. I spent the rest of the day staring at my computer screen, pretending to work on the menial tasks Mitchell had assigned me. But my mind was elsewhere. I opened a separate browser window and pulled up the stock ticker for Omnicorp Industries, Pinnacle Media's parent company. Omnicorp owned a dozen subsidiaries, and Pinnacle was just one small piece of their empire. Most people at Pinnacle didn't even think about Omnicorp. It was just a name on the earnings reports, a faceless entity somewhere far away. But I'd been thinking about Omnicorp for years. I'd watched their stock, studied their board, tracked their quarterly filings. And now, looking at that ticker, I felt a cold clarity settle over me. Mitchell thought he had power because he ran Pinnacle. But Omnicorp controlled Pinnacle. And if I controlled Omnicorp, I controlled everything. I closed the browser and picked up my phone. Mitchell thinks he has power, I whispered to myself. He has no idea what real power is. I called my private financial advisor, a discreet woman named Laura Keene who'd managed my portfolio for 8 years. She answered on the second ring. Kate, I was hoping you'd call. I saw the Pinnacle news. Word traveled fast in certain circles. I didn't ask how she knew. I want to start acquiring shares of Omnicorp Industries, I said calmly. Quietly. Through shell companies. I don't want anyone tracing it back to me. There was a pause. Then Laura said, how much are we talking? I thought for a moment. Start with 50 million. See what's available on the open market. If we need more, I'll authorize it. Laura's voice was steady, professional. Understood. I'll have a preliminary report by end of week. I hung up and leaned back in my chair. The first move had been made. Mitchell had no idea that while he was enjoying his victory, I was buying the ground beneath his feet. And once I owned enough, I'd pull that ground right out from under him. Monday morning, I returned to the office for the first time since the demotion. My new desk was in a back corner, far from the executive wing where I used to work. It was smaller, dimmer, with a view of the parking lot instead of the city skyline. As I was unpacking my things, Mitchell walked by. He stopped, leaned against the cubicle wall, and looked down at me with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Settling in okay, Kate? He asked. I nodded. Just fine. He picked up a file from my desk, flipped through it casually. I know this is an adjustment, but I really think you'll thrive here. Sometimes we all need a reset, you know? His tone was so condescending, so dripping with false concern, that I had to clench my jaw to keep from snapping. I appreciate the feedback, I said evenly. He patted the cubicle wall twice and walked away, whistling softly. I watched him go, my hands curled into fists under the desk. Every day, he did this. Every single day, he stopped by to remind me of my place. But he wouldn't be doing it much longer. A few days later, Bryce messaged me again. Can we grab coffee? I need to talk to you about something. We met in the break room during lunch, away from prying eyes. Bryce looked nervous, glancing around before he spoke. I shouldn't be telling you this, he said quietly. But Mitchell's been cooking the books. I froze. What do you mean? He leaned in closer. I was running a system audit last week, and I noticed discrepancies in the marketing department's expenses. Mitchell's been inflating project costs, making his campaigns look way more successful than they actually are. He's reporting fake ROI numbers to Omnicorp to make himself look like a genius. My heart started racing. Do you have proof? Bryce nodded. I saved copies of everything before he could bury it. But Kate, if this gets out, I'm done. He'll know it came from IT. I reached across the table and squeezed his hand. I won't let that happen. Just keep gathering evidence. When the time is right, we'll use it. He exhaled, relieved. And I smiled. Mitchell had just handed me the ammunition I needed. Over the next few weeks, I settled into my new role, and something strange happened. I started to feel calm. Coworkers noticed. They whispered about how well I was handling the demotion, how I wasn't falling apart like they'd expected. Mitchell noticed too. One afternoon, he stopped by my desk again. You seem different, he said, studying me. More at peace. I shrugged. I'm exploring other opportunities. Sometimes change is good. His face lit up. That's great, Kate. Really great. I'm glad you're being mature about this. He walked away looking satisfied, like my acceptance of defeat confirmed his brilliance. But he was wrong. I wasn't at peace because I'd given up. I was at peace because I knew exactly what was coming. And he didn't. To everyone else, my calmness looked like resignation. To me, it was the stillness before the storm. And the storm was coming fast. Laura called me on a Friday evening with an update. We've acquired a 5% stake in Omnicorp, she said. It cost us $62 million, but we're now a significant minority shareholder. I felt a thrill run through me. 5% was substantial, but it wasn't enough. Not yet. What's our path to majority control? I asked. Laura paused. It'll take more capital and more time. Omnicorp's board is protective of their voting shares. But if we're patient and strategic, we can get there. I nodded to myself. Keep buying. Slowly. Don't spook the market. She agreed, and we hung up. I poured myself a glass of wine and stood by the window, looking out at the city lights. 5% down. 47% to go. Mitchell was out there somewhere, probably celebrating another week of his so-called success. He had no idea that with every passing day, I was getting closer to owning everything he thought he controlled. And when I finally revealed myself, it was going to destroy him. 2 weeks later, the market took a sudden dip. Tech stocks tumbled, and Omnicorp's share price dropped 15% in a single day. At Pinnacle, panic spread. Mitchell called an emergency meeting, his face pale and tight with worry. Omnicorp is watching our numbers closely, he said, pacing in front of the conference room. If we don't hit our targets this quarter, they'll cut our budget. Everyone looked stressed. Everyone except me. Because while Mitchell saw a crisis, I saw an opportunity. That night, I called Laura. The stock dropped, I said. I know. It's a fire sale, she replied. I smiled. Buy as much as you can. Use everything we have. There was a pause. Kate, that's going to be a massive position. Are you sure? I didn't hesitate. I'm sure. 2 days later, Laura called back. We just acquired another 12%. You now own 17% of Omnicorp. I closed my eyes and exhaled. We weren't there yet. But we were getting close. The following week, something unexpected happened. Omnicorp's board of directors noticed the unusual buying activity. According to an industry blog I followed, they were intrigued by a mysterious investor who'd been steadily accumulating shares, even during the market dip. The board didn't know who it was, but they were impressed by the confidence and the capital behind the moves. One board member was quoted anonymously, "Whoever this is, they believe in Omnicorp's future." That kind of conviction is rare. I read the article twice, my heart pounding. They were paying attention now. They didn't know it was me, but they were watching. And that was exactly what I wanted. Because when the time came to reveal myself, I wanted them to already respect the investor before they knew her name. I wanted them to see the strategy, the patience, the vision. And then I wanted them to see me, the woman Mitchell Drake tried to erase. The woman who was about to become their boss. At work, things got worse. During a team video call, Mitchell singled me out in front of everyone. Kate, I've been reviewing the client retention project from last year, you know, the one you led before your transition. There are still some lingering issues that we're dealing with. My stomach tightened. The retention project had been flawless. We'd exceeded every target. I'm not sure what issues you're referring to, I said carefully. Mitchell sighed dramatically. Well, that's part of the problem, isn't it? If you don't see the issues, how can we fix them? He was lying. Completely, blatantly lying. And he was doing it to justify my demotion, to make it look like I deserved what happened. The team sat in uncomfortable silence. Nobody defended me. Nobody spoke up. After the call, I sat at my desk, hands trembling. This wasn't just about power anymore. This was personal. Mitchell wasn't content with demoting me. He wanted to destroy my reputation entirely. And that was the moment I decided I was done waiting. That afternoon, I left the office early and took the elevator to the rooftop. It was quiet up there, just the hum of the city below and the wind whipping through my hair. I pulled out my phone and called Laura. She answered immediately. "Kate?" My voice was steady, cold. "It's time. I want you to acquire the remaining blocks we need for a controlling interest. I don't care what it costs." There was a long pause. "Kate, that's going to take everything. Your entire liquidity." I stared out at the skyline, at the buildings stretching into the distance. Somewhere down there, Mitchell was sitting in his corner office, thinking he was untouchable. "Do it," I said. "I want 52%. I want full control." Laura exhaled. "Okay. Give me 72 hours. I hung up and stood there for a long moment, feeling the weight of what I'd just set in motion. This was it. No turning back now. By Monday, I'd either own Omnicorp or I'd have nothing left. But I wasn't afraid. I was ready. 71 hours later, my phone rang. It was Saturday evening, and I was at home, unable to focus on anything. I answered on the first ring. "Laura?" Her voice was calm, but I heard the smile in it. "It's done, Kate. As of 1 hour ago, you hold 52% of Omnicorp's voting shares." I sat down slowly, my legs suddenly weak. "Say that again." She laughed softly. "You own the parent company. Congratulations." I closed my eyes, letting the words wash over me. I owned Omnicorp. I owned Pinnacle. I owned Mitchell's entire world. And he had no idea. "What happens now?" I asked. Laura's tone turned professional. "Omnicorp's board will be notified Monday morning. They'll want to meet you immediately. You'll need to prepare remarks, establish your priorities, and decide how you want to handle the transition." I nodded, my mind already racing. "I'll be ready." We hung up, and I sat in the silence of my apartment. Then, finally, I allowed myself a small, cold smile. Mitchell Drake's reign ended Monday. And mine began. The weekend passed in a blur. I drafted notes, rehearsed what I'd say, and mentally prepared for what was coming. But at work on Monday, everything seemed normal. Mitchell was his usual arrogant self, strutting through the office, stopping by my desk to deliver another condescending comment. "How's the week looking, Kate? Staying busy?" I smiled politely. "Very busy, actually." He nodded, satisfied, and walked away. Around me, people went about their routines, meetings, emails, coffee runs. Nobody knew. Nobody suspected. I sat at my small desk in the corner, collecting my paycheck, gathering the last pieces of evidence Bryce had been quietly feeding me. Mitchell's fraudulent expense reports. His inflated performance metrics. His lies to the board. I saved everything in a secure folder. Because when I walked into that boardroom, I wouldn't just be the new owner. I'd be the one who exposed every dirty secret Mitchell tried to hide. And I'd do it with receipts. On Tuesday afternoon, an email arrived in Mitchell's inbox. I knew because Bryce forwarded it to me within minutes. The subject line read, "Urgent, in-person meeting required." The email was from David Sterling, CEO of Omnicorp Industries, and it requested the presence of all Pinnacle department heads for an emergency meeting at Omnicorp headquarters on Friday morning. The reason, to meet the new majority shareholder. Mitchell's reply was almost immediate. He was thrilled, excited, already drafting talking points to impress the new boss. Bryce's message to me was short: he has no idea, does he? I typed back, none. I sat back in my chair, imagining Mitchell's excitement. He thought this was his big moment, his chance to climb even higher. He was probably already planning what suit to wear, what impressive stats to present. He thought he was about to charm a powerful new investor. He was wrong. On Friday, Mitchell's world was going to collapse. And I was going to be the one holding the hammer. The rest of the week, Mitchell was unbearable. He bragged constantly about the upcoming meeting, talking loudly in the hallways about his big presentation for the new shareholder. "This is my chance to show what Pinnacle can really do," he told the leadership team during a morning huddle. He was practically glowing with confidence. Meanwhile, I was making my own preparations. I bought a new navy pantsuit, sharp, powerful, expensive. I got my hair cut and styled. I practiced my opening remarks in front of the mirror until they sounded effortless. On Thursday night, I barely slept. I lay awake, running through every possible scenario, every question they might ask, every move Mitchell might make. But beneath the nerves, there was a core of absolute certainty. I'd spent months planning this. I'd spent a fortune making it happen. And tomorrow, everything changed. I wasn't Kate Ellis, the demoted analyst, anymore. Tomorrow, I'd become Katherine Ellis, chairwoman of the board. And Mitchell Drake would become nothing. Friday morning, I arrived at Omnicorp headquarters 30 minutes early. The building was massive, sleek glass and steel towering over the financial district. I checked in at the front desk, and a receptionist escorted me to a private waiting room. "Mr. Sterling will collect you when it's time," she said. I sat alone, breathing slowly, centering myself. Down the hall, I could hear voices, Mitchell's among them. He was laughing, joking with the other Pinnacle department heads. They had no idea what was about to happen. At exactly 9 o'clock, the door opened. David Sterling, a tall man in his 60s with silver hair and a kind face, stepped in. "Ms. Ellis," he said warmly. "Are you ready?" I stood, smoothing my jacket. "I'm ready." He smiled. "Then let's go introduce you to your company." We walked down the corridor together, and my heart pounded with every step. This was it. The moment I'd been waiting for. The door to the boardroom was just ahead, and behind it, Mitchell was waiting. He had no idea his life was about to end. David opened the door, and I stepped inside. The boardroom was stunning, floor-to-ceiling windows, a long mahogany table, leather chairs, and 12 people seated around it. The Pinnacle leadership team, Mitchell, the CFO, the VP of Sales, the HR director, and others. They all turned to look at the door, expecting David. Instead, they saw me. The room froze. Mitchell's face went from curious to confused to horrified in the span of 3 seconds. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. I didn't look at him. I walked calmly to the head of the table, David following behind me. I set my portfolio down, smoothed my jacket, and finally met Mitchell's eyes. He was white as a sheet, his hands gripping the edge of the table like he was about to fall. David cleared his throat. "Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce you to Katherine Ellis, Omnicorp's new majority shareholder and chairwoman of the board." The room was dead silent. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. I finally allowed myself a small smile. "Hello, Mitchell," I said quietly. "Let's begin." For a long moment, nobody spoke. Mitchell stared at me like I was a ghost, his brain clearly struggling to process what was happening. The CFO looked between us, confused. The VP of Sales looked like she was about to be sick. Finally, David gestured for everyone to sit. "Ms. Ellis has acquired 52% of Omnicorp's voting shares," he explained calmly. "As majority owner, she has full authority over all subsidiaries, including Pinnacle Media." He turned to me. Katherine, the floor is yours. I stood, placing my hands on the table, and looked around the room. Thank you all for being here. I know this is unexpected, but I want to assure you that my goal is not chaos. It's clarity. I paused, letting that sink in. For too long, Pinnacle has operated without proper oversight. Decisions have been made based on ego rather than evidence. And that ends today. Mitchell finally found his voice. Kate, Ms. Ellis, I don't understand. How did you? I cut him off. You'll have your chance to speak, Mitchell. But first, we're going to do something long overdue. We're going to audit your department. I opened my portfolio and pulled out a folder. My first official act as chairwoman is to authorize a full forensic audit of all departmental finances, starting with marketing. I slid the folder across the table to David. I've already identified several irregularities that warrant immediate investigation. Mitchell's face went from white to red. That's outrageous. You can't just. David held up a hand. Ms. Ellis has every right to order an audit. In fact, as fiduciary responsibility goes, it's prudent. He opened the folder and scanned the documents inside. His expression darkened. Mitchell, these are serious allegations. Inflated expenses, misreported ROI figures, falsified performance data. Mitchell stammered. Those are taken out of context. You can't trust. I interrupted calmly. The data came directly from Pinnacle's internal systems. Timestamped, server-logged, and verified by IT. I glanced at Bryce, who was sitting quietly in the corner. He nodded once, confirming. Mitchell's eyes widened. He knew he was caught. And there was no way out. The audit took 3 days. During that time, Mitchell was placed on administrative leave while investigators combed through every expense report, every project file, every email. I didn't interfere. I just waited. On Monday afternoon, David called me. Katherine, you need to see this. I drove to Omnicorp headquarters and met him in his office. He slid a thick report across his desk. It's worse than we thought. He's been inflating project costs by an average of 35% for 2 years. The ROI numbers he reported to us? Completely fabricated. He made Pinnacle look profitable when we were actually losing money. I flipped through the report, page after page of evidence. Forged invoices. Fake vendor contracts. Altered financial statements. It was all there, documented and undeniable. What happens now? I asked. David's face was grim. We terminate him. Immediately. For cause. I nodded. I want to be there when it happens. He looked at me carefully. Are you sure? I met his eyes. I'm sure. Because Mitchell needed to see me when it ended. He needed to know exactly who brought him down. Wednesday morning, Mitchell was called into the boardroom. He walked in looking defiant, like he was ready to fight his way out of this. But when he saw me sitting at the head of the table, flanked by David, the HR director, and 2 security guards, his face fell. Sit down, Mitchell, I said calmly. He sat, his hands trembling slightly. I slid the audit report across the table. This is a summary of the forensic audit conducted on your department. I'm sure you're familiar with the contents. He didn't open it. David spoke next. Mitchell Drake, you are hereby terminated from Pinnacle Media, effective immediately, for gross misconduct and financial fraud. You will receive no severance, no benefits, and we will be pursuing legal action to recover the misappropriated funds. Mitchell's face crumbled. You can't do this. I built Pinnacle. I made this company what it is. I leaned forward. No, Mitchell. You nearly destroyed it. And you destroyed people along the way. I stood. Security will escort you out. You have 10 minutes to collect your personal items. He stared at me, and for a moment, I saw it, the realization that he'd lost. Completely. To the woman he'd publicly humiliated. He was escorted out in silence. And I didn't feel victorious. I just felt done. The following week, I addressed the entire Pinnacle team in an all-hands meeting. This time, I was the one on camera. My name is Katherine Ellis, and I'm the new owner of Omnicorp Industries, which means I'm also your new boss. The chat exploded with reactions: shock, confusion, curiosity. I let them process for a moment, then continued. I'm not here for revenge. I'm here to fix what's broken. For too long, this company rewarded politics over performance. That ends now. I announced several changes: a new ethics hotline, transparent performance reviews, and a commitment to promoting from within based on merit. Then I announced the promotions. Bryce Chen is now Director of IT. He's earned it. The chat flooded with congratulations. Bryce, watching from his desk, messaged me, "Thank you." I smiled. And to everyone else, this company was built on hard work, not games. We're going back to that. The call ended, and I closed my laptop. I wasn't just the owner now. I was the leader they'd needed all along. The quiet woman they'd tried to erase had become their boss. And I didn't just buy their obedience. I'd earned their respect.